Hello everyone, my name is Claire McGinnis and I'm currently working on my Girl Scout Gold Award project. Today I'm going to talk to you about scams and how to avoid them. So thank you for tuning in today, and right now I'm just going to share my screen so we can get started. This will allow you to follow along with my presentation as I go through it. Great. So like I said, today I'm going to be teaching you about scam safety and hopefully you learn some ways to protect yourselves. So, first things first, it's important to go over what exactly is a scam. Maybe you've heard the word thrown around a few times. Maybe you've been a victim of a scam. Maybe you know someone who has been a victim of a scam. Whatever the case may be, what a scam is a form of identity theft. Now, identity theft is a federal crime where someone uses another person's information without that person's knowledge, without that person's consent. So here are just a few facts that I found through my research that really stood out to me, and I think they will to you as well. So I want to share them. So in 2017, about 1 in 5 people reported being a victim of an imposter scheme, which totaled a loss of $328 million. And this one especially stood out to me because I related it to my own life. And for example, there are 5 people living in my house. So that showed me that one of us would be a victim of a scam according to this ratio. And then I applied this to everyone I know, all the families I know, and it showed me how many people are affected by scams. Another statistic is people 70 and older suffered the highest average losses. And that goes along with this graph to the side here. As you can see, as age increases, so does the amount of money lost. And then in a 2019 article by Forbes, the FTC, which is the Federal Trade Commission, stated regarding family and friend imposter scams, losses over the past year reached $41 million as compared to $26 million in the previous year. And this didn't only stand out to me because of the large amount of money lost, but it also stood out to me because of the increase in the amount of money lost. In just 1 year, so many people were losing so many more people were losing money towards scams. And this shows how even though people are becoming more educated on scams, they're not going away because scammers are also getting better at what they do. So that is why it is so important for everyone to keep staying updated on scams. And you're already doing that now by listening to my presentation. So good job. So there are many different scams out there, unfortunately, but I picked the ones that I think are most relevant right now. We have the grandparent scam, the phone scam, the computer scam, the coronavirus scam, and the home repair scam. And these are the ones I'm going to be touching on today. So first we have the grandparent scam. And this name comes from the fact that grandparents often fall victim trying to help their grandchildren. But even if you're not a grandparent, you can still be a victim of this scam. That's why it's also called the family and friend imposter scam. Because really what it is when you receive a call from someone claiming to be someone you would trust, such as a family member or friend, a grandparent, or the police. And they say they need your help because they're in some kind of danger or trouble. And they'll often say too, don't tell mom and dad. And you might be thinking, well, of course, my grandchild doesn't want to get in trouble by their parents. But really, this is just the scammer trying to protect themselves because they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to get caught. And the more people that know about the situation, the higher chance it is that they're going to get caught. What actually sparked my interest for this project, when I saw the need for education about scams, is because a few years ago, my grandmother was unfortunately a victim of the grandparent scam. The police called her and said that my brother had been in a bad car accident and that they needed money for him in order to help him. And she said they even put someone on the phone that sounded exactly like my brother. So really, it is so believable, and they happen way too often, so we have to be aware of them. We have to be careful. So next we have the phone scam. And this relates to the grandparent scam because the grandparent scam often comes in the form of a phone call. And oftentimes these kinds of scammers will manipulate the caller ID. This way, it shows up to appear as the police because you're more likely to pick up the phone if a police is calling than a random number. You should also be careful even if you get a referral. Sometimes a scammer who's trying to sell you something might give you another number to a person that can back them up, make them more credible. And this might be believable to you because someone else is promoting this product, this person. But really, it could all be part of the same trick, and a scammer could just be referring you to another scammer. So that's why it's just important not to always trust what you hear from other people. And the phone scam could come in many different forms, like winning a prize, in trouble with the law, selling something, as I mentioned, confirming information, especially that social security number is something they really try to get from you, car warranty, appointment, really anything that they can get your information from, so then therefore they can get money from you. So here are a few steps to take if you receive a suspicious phone call. You can always just hang up. Do not press any buttons to speak to a real person, because this will increase your chance of getting similar calls. You can also just let the phone ring. If they leave a voicemail, you have time to logically think about the situation so your emotions don't take over. You should also contact the real person directly. If you get a call from someone claiming to be your grandchild, for example, maybe call that grandchild separately after, hang up and call them on a number that you know is truly theirs to make sure that the person is actually who they're claiming to be. You should also ask your phone company to block telemarketers that change their caller ID and robocalls and ask to be put on the National Do Not Call registry. This is extremely helpful. I know I have it set up on my phone, so if I get a random number that my phone does not recognize, it'll say potential spam. And this just helps me to know not to pick up the phone in that case because I don't want to be at risk of being scammed. Here are a few other questions to ask yourself. You should ask, who's calling and why? Telemarketers must say who they are, what they are selling, and that this is a sales pitch before even making the sales pitch itself. If the person does not say this, chances are it's a scam. You should also ask, what's the hurry? Scammers will try to get you on urgency. They make everything seem like a life or death situation. For example, they might say, if you don't act now, all your information will be wiped, or something like that. And the reason they do this is because they don't want you to have time to logically think about what is happening. You should also ask, if it's free, why are they asking me to pay? Oftentimes, scammers will try to entice people by offering a free service. Because, who doesn't want something that's free, right? But then they'll ask you to pay in some kind of form, such as taxes, shipment, service charges. And this is so they can get your information and then get more money from you in the future. You should also ask, why am I confirming my information or giving it out? Sometimes scammers will already have your information from another way they hacked you, but they need a written statement saying that you confirmed the transaction so they can prove this to wherever they're trying to use your money. You should also ask, what time is it? Telemarketers can only call between the hours of 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. So if you get a call really early in the morning or really late at night, chances are it's a scam, and you should not pick up random numbers, unknown numbers at those hours, especially. So next we have the computer scam, and the computer scam is very similar to the phone scam because it tries to lure you into providing or confirming personal information. And it comes in many of the same forms, such as winning a prize, selling something, confirming information such as your social security number, forwarding a fun message, an appointment, really anything, again, that they can use to get your money, get your information. And the major way they do this is through links. So that's why you should not click on any unknown links, because these links then give the scammer access to all the information on your computer. And when you think about it, we have so much information on our computer that will allow a hacker, allow a scammer to take advantage of us and take our money. A good tip is to hover over the email before opening it. You can usually do this by, when you get an email, you can say who sends it, but you don't necessarily see their email address. But if you put your cursor over their name, after a few seconds, the email address will pop up, and then you can see if there are any mistakes in it. For example, if it's someone claiming to be a US company, but they have UK at the end of their email address. A little change like that, one letter should be a sign that it's a scam and the person they're claiming to be isn't actually them. And a good sign too is if you can't do this, if their email address doesn't come up after you hover over it, then it's probably not a valid email address either. In those cases, just delete the email without even opening it. You should also be cautious of generic greetings such as "Dear user," because this means that same email is probably being sent out to hundreds, maybe even thousands of people, because the scammer is hoping that just one person falls for their tricks. And they want to save time for themselves, make it easier for them by just sending it to a bunch of people. You should also be cautious of suspicious emails from people you know. In these cases, you should check with the person because that person could be hacked. For example, I have heard instances of people getting emails from a friend or a family member saying, "Hi, I'm in a foreign country and I was robbed and I really need money to help get home safely." Meanwhile, that person was actually safe in their house, but they were hacked and someone was trying to not only hack that person, but also try to get money from the people they know. So that's why if you get a suspicious email from someone you know, just don't automatically trust it. You should check up on that person and help them as well. So the big thing here is just to delete messages that ask for personal information from sources that you don't know. If someone really needs to get in contact with you, really needs your information, they'll find other ways to do it. So you shouldn't risk being a victim of a scam. Next, we have the coronavirus scam. As if the pandemic wasn't bad enough, of course, there's a scam to go along with it. So as of January 12th, 2021, there were more than 324,000 consumer complaints related to COVID-19 and stimulus payments, and 69% of them involved fraud or identity theft. This was according to the Federal Trade Commission once again. This really stood out to me because it showed how, in less than a year, so many people were affected by just this one scam. And the scam comes in many different forms, such as emails, text messages, social media posts, phone calls, and they advertise things such as vaccinations, fake antibody tests, in demand supplies, really anything that they can get your information, like your social security number, financial information, insurance number, because then that gives them access to get money from you. I know I heard a story of someone that they got an email saying that, "Hi, we'd like to inform you that you have a vaccination appointment for February 29th." And at first, I feel like, "Oh, yay, like I got my vaccination appointment." Then you think, huh, there is no February 29th in 2021. Then you know that you were scammed. And if that person were to click on that link the person gave them, they would have been hacked. You have to be very careful. And the reason why the scam is so big right now is because scammers follow headlines and adapt their messages and tactics accordingly. People know that the coronavirus is on everybody's mind right now, and it strikes a lot of fear because it's an unprecedented time and people don't necessarily know a lot about what to do. And scammers use this fear and the want of people to protect themselves and the people they know, they use it against people to make them give their information, to make them give their money. Another fact that I found through my research was about stimulus scams. So the official term is economic impact payment, not stimulus. So an official government document will state economic impact payment, not stimulus. So this is a good sign to see if you're actually getting a notice from the government or if your notice is coming from a scammer. So I just talked about a bunch of virtual scams, but I just want to bring up one in-person scam right now. And that is the home repair scam. This happens when someone knocks on your door claiming they can fix something, but they never do it or they make bad repairs. And this is especially common after storms. because it's more believable that there'll be something wrong with your house. And these scammers will often say things like, they're doing work in your neighborhood because you're more likely to agree for someone to do work on your house if your friend is also getting it done, right? This scam actually almost happened to my dad a few years ago. It was right after a storm, and someone came knocking on our door, said, "Hi, sir, I see there's a problem with your roof, and I can give you a great deal because I'm working on your neighbor down the street." And my dad was a little suspicious of this because it was very out of the blue. So he was like, "Oh, who's the neighbor? What's his name? What's her name?" And the scammer said, "Oh, I'll have to get back to you on that one." They left, never came back. Clear sign that that person was a scammer. So that's a good way you can trick the scammer. So here are a few things to do to avoid being scammed in this situation. You should ask for references, license, and insurance. Reliable companies will have this ready and available to you, but scammers most likely will not. However, you should also check the authenticity of the documents that you're receiving to make sure they're not fake and make sure that it's not from a scammer. You can also get estimates and opinions from other people. This is important when doing any project to compare prices, but especially if you think you're at a risk of being scammed. You should also get a signed contract because this means that that person has to legally do the work that they promised to do on your house, and scammers just won't agree to this, right? You should also avoid cash and wire transfer forms of payment. And wire transfer form of payment is just another electronic form of payment that is very common. And the reason to avoid these forms of payment is because one, scammers use them often. And the reason why scammers do that is because it's very hard to get your money back afterwards when using these forms of payment. So that's why they should be avoided. Okay, so I just talked about a few different scams right now, but now I want to tell you ways that you can avoid these scams. So I'm going to go over some red flags. First red flag, a fact does not make sense. This can really be anything. Some examples are you just saw your grandchild, or maybe they don't even have a license and they're claiming to be in a car accident. Another good sign with the grandparent scam is say your grandchildren always call you Nana, but then this person on the phone all of a sudden calls you Grandma. You should be suspicious, saying, none of my grandchildren would ever call me Grandma, they'd call me Nana, so this can't be them. You should also be cautious if the person asks for money over the phone. Police will never ask for money over the phone. Last February, I met with Chief Palanchi of Roxbury Township, where my aunt and uncle live, and he told me directly that no police would ever ask for money over the phone. And this is a really good sign because scammers will often ask for money over the phone. And like I said on the previous slide, you should avoid cash, prepaid gift cards, wire transfers, because government offices and honest companies will not use these forms of payment, but scammers often do because it's very hard to get your money back afterwards when you realized you were scammed. You should also look for excuses for the person's voice being different. Maybe they'll say they have a cold, or they might even try to work it into the whole story saying, oh, in the car accident, they broke their nose, that's why they're sounding different. But the reason the person's sounding different is because they're not who they're claiming to be. So that's a good sign. You should also be cautious of urgency and threats. I know I've mentioned this, but I really want to hit this point home because it's so important. Scammers want you to get caught up in the urgency, caught up in the fear, so that your emotions take over and you don't have time to logically think about the situation like the smart person you are. Also, be cautious if you receive multiple calls. So, this happened with my grandma, going back to that story again. She got a call from the person asking her to actually get Home Depot gift cards because that was the form of payment they wanted her to use. Because, like I said, very hard to get your money back afterwards. And then she came home and the person called her again and she read out the numbers to them. And that's how they got her money that way. Then they called back again shortly after, saying that my brother had been in even more trouble and that they needed more money. So she went back to Home Depot and got more gift cards, and the same process happened again. So if you get multiple calls from someone, don't let the fear increase and instead try to let your logical thinking take over. You should also be cautious of spelling and grammar mistakes. Like I mentioned, the little changes in email addresses. I know this can be very difficult to spot when you're just quickly skimming over an email. However, it's extremely important because honest companies will most likely not make these kind of mistakes, but scammers will, and it's a really clear sign that someone is not really a reliable company. So, what to do when being scammed? This can be a very stressful situation because you don't know if the person you're talking to is lying to you and trying to take advantage of you. But what I want you to do is stop and verify. And this is important because it allows your emotions to calm down while your logical thinking takes over. And I know I've been repeating that a lot, but it's just really important to remember. And a way you can verify is ask personal questions that only the real person would be able to answer. For example, when did you last see each other, or what did you get them for their birthday? Avoid any questions that can easily be found on social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything of the sorts. Because even if you don't have a social media account yourself, scammers are really good at connecting the dots and connecting people to the people they know to then find information on you so it makes them seem more credible. So you should also check with your family members and friends, even if you are told not to. You might be thinking you're trying to protect your loved ones by not telling anyone, but really you're just protecting the scammer because the less people that know, the less chance it is that they will get caught. Again, this happened with my grandmother. For a while, she remained silent and didn't tell my mom, didn't tell anyone because the scammer told her that by telling people she'd be putting my brother in danger and she would never want to do that. But then she ended up asking my mom a few days later, "Oh, how's Bobby," which is my brother, "doing?" And my mom was like, "Oh, yeah, he's good. He's fine." And then she was very confused, and they put the pieces together and realized that she had been a victim of a scam. So that's why it's very important to check with other people to get a fresh new perspective on the situation. You should also look for red flags, as I mentioned on the previous slide. So maybe go back and just especially take note of those because they're extremely important and really good signs to spot the scammer. You should also not give the scammer any information. And you might be thinking, well, of course, I wouldn't give a scammer my bank information, but this comes in smaller ways too. For example, say you get a call from someone, they're like, "Hi, Grandma," and you're like, "Oh, Jimmy?" And they're like, "Yeah, Grandma, it's Jimmy." And you're like, "Oh, well, of course this is my grandchild because how else would they know that my grandchild's name is Jimmy, right?" But really, you gave that scammer that information without even thinking about it. However, you can also use this to your advantage and trick the scammer. Pretend you didn't have a grandchild named Jimmy. You get that same call, "Hi, Grandma." And you're like, "Hi, Jimmy?" "Yeah, Grandma, it's Jimmy." Then you know right then that could not possibly be your grandchild because you didn't even have a grandchild named Jimmy. So that's a good way that you can use things to your advantage to trick the scammer and catch them. It's also important to stay educated on scams. You're already doing that now by coming to this presentation, which is great. But even after you're done watching this video, I want you to keep staying educated. And ways you can do this is just simply by watching or reading the news. Once I was at the dentist's office and there was a segment on the news about scams right there without me even having to look for it. There is so much information out there, and I really want you to keep staying updated and take advantage of all the information out there because it's there to help you. Speaking of staying educated, you should find out more information on the person you're talking to, especially if they seem suspicious. You should find their physical address and phone number, but make sure to find this yourself so it's not just false information that the scammer is feeding to you. You should also search for a company's name and website to see if the website looks authentic, if it looks legitimate. And you should be cautious of the reviews, take a good look at them. I know I said not to necessarily trust referrals, and this still remains true. However, if you see a trend of bad reviews, chances are you should avoid the product or avoid the person you're researching. Also, unfortunately, scammers take advantage of generous people, and that's why it's so important to check your charities at give.org to make sure your money is going to the right place, going to the people in need, and not into the scammer's pocket. So now I want to go over a few things to do after being scammed. Number one thing, do not remain silent. Let me say that again. Do not remain silent. This is extremely important because remaining silent is exactly what the scammer wants you to do. Because your silence means that the scammer, they may not be able to get money from you anymore, but they can go to other people and get money from them and keep taking advantage of innocent people because no one is stopping them. The ways to not remain silent are report it to the Federal Trade Commission and the police. The Federal Trade Commission helps spot trends and scams and helps catch the scammers, and this is similar to what the police do. That's why it's very important to let them know so that we can catch these scammers together. It's also important to let your family and friends know what happened. This is important because if the scammer has a lot of information on you, chances are they can use some of that information on the people you know and like your family and friends because a lot of it matches up, and then they could try to take advantage of the people you care about. That's why it's important. I know you might be ashamed, which you really shouldn't be, but it's important to tell people because by not telling them, you're actually hurting them. Also, contact your bank or the company that issued the gift card because they can help try to get some of your money back. That's why it's so important to keep the physical gift card and the receipt when you make any gift card purchase because this increases your chance of being able to get some of your money back. Also, change your passwords. If you were robbed, if your house was robbed, you change the locks on your house, right? So just similarly, you have to change your passwords. And of course, this is the account that got hacked, but any account that has similar passwords, you should change because the scammer will try to go down every avenue they can to get your money and get your information. Also, make sure that your computer security software and contact service provider are up to date so you're using your resources in the best way possible. And listed below, I just have some numbers to call and websites to look at. So again, if you want to pause it and jot down these numbers, or you can just do a quick Google search and so many of them come up. These are resources, people that want to help you. They know a lot of information about scams and they can help you in your situation. So like this quote here says, report it, don't ignore it. So now you might be thinking, Claire, why are there still so many victims if people are becoming more educated on scams? Well, good question. The answer is scammers use emotions against people. They use a persuasive technique called pathos to use people's emotions against them, such as fear, love, because they know that people are happy that they are trusted and valued, and they don't want to do anything to break this trust. They also know that people are protectors and willing to do anything to protect the people they care about and themselves. And unfortunately, scammers take advantage of this. Also, people get caught up in that urgency. Again, I'm bringing this up because it is so important. Scammers want you to act fast because they don't want you to have time to think that, hey, this doesn't make sense. Also, the reason why older people are targeted is because they may live alone, be more polite towards strangers, and have savings. So that goes back to that first slide where we saw the graph with the increase of the older generation and the amount of money they lost towards scams. Because scammers know these facts and it's unfortunately something they take advantage of. You might also be thinking, I'm a very private person. How do these scammers even find my information? Another good question. A lot of it is a trial and error process, and the scammers are just hoping to get lucky. This is the scammer's full-time job. A lot of them could be sitting in offices with a bunch of other scammers, researching you and trying to find out information on you, sending out a bunch of emails, because they hope just one person falls for their tricks, because this one person might give them their salary for the week, maybe even the month. They also buy leads lists off of each other. And a leads list is when one scammer will compile the information they have on their victims, the people that they have gotten money from before. Then they will sell this to another scammer who will then go after these same people, and the process just keeps going on and on. Also, social media, like I mentioned, is a really, really big way for scammers to get information. Social media is great. It connects us to people that live far and during times when we cannot see them. However, it can also be very dangerous. That's why you have to be extremely careful about not only what you post, but what the people you know post. Because, like I said, even if you don't have a social media account yourself, you're not necessarily in the clear because scammers can connect the dots and find out who you know to get information on you. Also, hacking into the emails, especially through those unknown links. Because once you click on that link, no matter how enticing it might look, the scammer will get all of your information on your computer and have so much access to take your money. So please do not click on those unknown links. Also, as I mentioned, the reason why the coronavirus scam is so big is because of the headlines. And this is another reason why the Amazon scam, which happened recently, was so big, because a lot of people, especially during the beginning of quarantine, were ordering off of Amazon because you couldn't really go to any stores. And scammers knew this and they took advantage of it. And this will happen probably forever. Scammers, they're smart in a sense because they know what's on everybody's mind and they know how to use it to their advantage. So be cautious of that. Scammers do a lot of research. So that's why it's your job to out research the scammer and make sure you have all the information you have possible to get on the person that you're interacting with before you take any actions, especially in the form of payment. Okay, so I know that was a lot of information and it could be very overwhelming. However, even if you remember just one thing from this presentation, you're already doing better to protect yourself from scams. And one point I just want to reiterate here at the end is being a victim of a scam does not reflect your intelligence. It shows that you're a compassionate, caring, loving person, willing to do anything to protect yourself and the people you love. And unfortunately, scammers take advantage of this. I've heard stories of people such as judges or people of other high professional status being victims of scams. So it really shows that it's not a reflection of your intelligence at all. And this is a reason why many people are ashamed and they remain silent. But I just want you to remember to not remain silent because it's really nothing to be ashamed of, which I know is easier said than done. But please, please remember that. And like this quote here says, with this fun little smiley face, you got this. So, again, thank you for listening to my presentation today. Down below in the description, I have a link to a website that I created that has a lot of information on scams, a lot of the information we went over here, as well as the quiz. And it's a really good resource that you can use to keep staying educated on scams. So feel free to watch this video again, check out my website, and please find other ways to get educated on scams as well. So again, thank you everyone for coming to my presentation, for tuning in today and listening. I really appreciate it. And I hope you learned a few things about scams today. Remember, you got this. Have a great day, evening, morning, night, whatever time it is. Thank you.